boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. This is Jesse with the Common Nerd, bringing you pop culture and all things nerdy through a common sense lens. And you know, despite what the legacy media will have you believe out there by all of their headlines, Fantastic Four's opening weekend box office, yes, Fantastic Four First Steps, supposed to be the beginning of the bright new future of the MCU, supposed to be a return to form out there, giving us good quality storytelling again without a bunch of the nonsense, the garbage, or at least that's what all of the marketing would have you believe out there. Well, it turns out, boys and girls, as we have talked about so many times on this channel over and over and over again, Marvel burnout is absolutely beyond a shadow of a doubt so very real. You can't spend the better part of a decade, if not at least the last 5 years, putting out garbage after garbage television show after garbage movie that failed miserably at the box office over and over and over again before the fans finally get word to the wise of the garbage that you are doing and they want no part of it anymore. Disney Marvel has damaged their brand beyond belief, and Fantastic Four's opening weekend just proves that, because boys and girls, not only did it come in underneath Superman, who had one of the weakest global international box office opening weekends for any Superman movie ever. Yes, even with all of that, ladies and gentlemen, Superman still beat Fantastic Four globally, and that just shows you how much of a damaged brand Marvel is and how much fans don't want any part of this nonsense anymore. Because as of right now, from the people with common sense that we all trust in our little corner of the internet, I'm hearing mixed things. It seems like it's kind of crazy to actually see the kind of divide out there. All of the people that seem to have really enjoyed the Superman movie really don't like Fantastic Four. Those that seem to like Fantastic Four didn't seem to like the Superman movie. It almost feels like we've gone back to the divide of back in the heyday of actual good comic book eras, where you had your hardcore DC fans and you had your hardcore Marvel fans, and they just wanted different things from comics. And of course, that same thing translates over to different things for comic book movies. But despite that, it is an overall general audience score that is doing really well, which could prove out to have some decent legs. But considering the past history of Marvel over the last few years when it comes to their movies, this is probably not a good start and will probably end up leading to another box office disastrous dumpster fire for Disney Marvel, despite what the trades will have to tell you with headlines like this. 4 reasons why Fantastic Four ended Marvel's box office slump. Boys and girls, if you have to come up with 4 reasons and write an entire article justifying how well this box office is doing, that's not a good sign. If a box office is doing well, it is apparent to anybody out there that is looking at it. But ladies and gentlemen, as always, that's why we go to places that do not involve the legacy media, because they are more likely to tell you the truth and break down the numbers, not only in a very digestible way, but also in a truth-telling way, telling you things are not doing so well. And once again, Fantastic Four had the largest Friday to Saturday drop in the history of the MCU, at least in recent era. It was abysmally bad. But of course, if you just listen to the legacy media out there, you will not know that. And of course, once again, we return to Cosmic Book News, who gives us those opening weekend numbers, which are a little hard to find over on the numbers.com international wise, showing why that even Superman with the weak opening international box office still is crushing Fantastic Four at the box office. Ladies and gentlemen, despite all of the hype around this movie, and God only knows the hundreds of millions of dollars they spent on marketing, because I swear I could not turn my head researching for news in the morning without seeing another interview with Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, or somebody else from the Fantastic Four into every single media outlet out there every 5 minutes. And guess what? After all those hundreds of millions of dollars spent, it still ended up working out to an extremely weak box office opening weekend. So we're going to check out all of these articles. We're going to get into all the juicy details of exactly how bad this is and what this means for the future of the Fantastic Four as far as what the box office could end up entailing, and why Superman, despite an extremely weak international showing, could still end up being the box office comic book movie titan of July. And if that is not egg on Bob Iger and Kevin Feige's face, I don't know what is, boys and girls, and it's a beautiful thing to see. So we're going to get into all of those juicy details, but before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share it with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing. We just crossed 2,100, or 22K. We are sailing our way towards 2,100. I think we're like 4 away from it, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, leave us a comment in the section down below. Did you go see Fantastic Four? What did you think of the movie? Do you think the domestic box office with the good word of mouth will actually end up holding forward and giving this movie a chance at actually making a profit? Or did you go see this movie and think it was an absolute abysmal abomination out there? Which did you like better, Superman or Fantastic Four? Who do you think will end up being the king of comic book movies when it comes to July? Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below. If you'd like to support the channel, please check out the links in the description down below. All right, we're going to start off over here with cosmicbook.news, and our dear sweet Matt McGloin, but we're going to quickly jump over to thatparkplace.com because they really break down well the exact numbers for Saturday and how it compares to other recent MCU entries. So Fantastic Four box office stalls, fails to beat Superman, says Matt McGloin over there at cosmicbook.news. Round 1 goes to James Gunn and the new DCU, as James Gunn's Superman flick is flying high and has managed to beat Fantastic Four's opening box office weekend. I left Friday for Comic-Con, where I was looking at Fantastic Four was coming out on top. Fantastic Four overperformed for its Thursday previews, bringing in $24.4 million, higher than estimates, and beating Superman's $22.5 million. If the trend continued through the weekend, Fantastic Four would have beaten Superman's opening weekend of $125 million. However, Fantastic Four did not and fell short. That's right, boys and girls. All of the Disney pixie dusters, all of the Kevin Feige acolytes, all of those people out there showed up. And you know what? It was surprising to actually see those previews beat Superman, because the numbers for previews initially, the initial early purchasing of the box of the tickets, the pre-sales, I don't know why it took me so long to bring that to the forefront of my mind, but the pre-sales were actually weaker than Superman's. But of course, boy, I'll tell you what, them Kevin Feige Marvel simps for the spirit of the age out there, they had to be there on Thursday night, and they front-loaded it something hard. But that shows you, once again, they have a small core audience that whatever they tailor for that small core modern audience that they've been chasing does not equal out to a broader audience appeal. If not, that Saturday drop wouldn't have been so bad. There we go. Marvel's Fantastic Four only brought in $118 million domestically. Check out the daily comparisons below, where you can see Fantastic Four stalls on Saturday and Sunday, suggesting Thursday and Friday were front-loaded with Feige zombie fans that eat anything Feige throws their way. We've often compared to them to like hogs at the slop, and it's one of them situations where, because that's how these studio heads, that's how these quote-unquote elites inside of Hollywood have treated the fans for a very long time. They thought they could just throw whatever slop in the trough and that you were just a bunch of stupid nerds, just a bunch of stupid geeks, just a bunch of stupid comic book fans, and you just eat up whatever slop they threw in the trough just because they have to slap tights and a cape on it. Well, guess what? That didn't work out very well for them at all, because that Saturday box office drop-off is abysmal. Fantastic Four box office dips 42% on Saturday, showing signs of front-loading and diminishing MCU momentum. Marvel burnout is real, and all the nostalgia bait in the world is not going to save them. This does not bode well for how well Avengers Doomsday is going to do at the box office. I'll tell you that much right now. The Access Media may be painting a rosy picture of Disney Marvel's new Fantastic Four movie, but the Saturday box office slide could be concerning for the House of Mouse. In a summer-dominated superhero spectacles, Marvel Studios' The Fantastic Four First Steps arrived in theaters on July 25th amid high expectations for a franchise reboot. Directed by a bunch of people that we don't care about and starring a bunch of people that are just a bunch of adult pretenders, one of which we absolutely despise. However, early box office data reveals a mixed picture. A solid but underwhelming domestic opening marred by a sharp internal weekend decline, suggesting that the initial fan enthusiasm may not translate to a broader sustained appeal. You mean chasing a modern audience doesn't actually equal out to numbers that actually make you a profit? Weird, strange concept. Who could have possibly seen that coming? Oh, I don't know. Just all of the actual common sense fans out there. Obviously, we already talked about the opening box office weekend and all of that kind of stuff. Initial predictions hovered around 120 million to 125 million for the 3-day domestic weekend, with some insiders optimistic about surpassing Superman's 125 million debut. They were still screaming this from the rooftops on Wednesday and Thursday. And guess what? They were wrong. Just like they've been wrong about the majority of Marvel projects out there, Fantastic Four underperformed projections once again, adding to a long history of Kevin Feige's Disney Marvel doing this at the box office. Guess what? Turns out Fantastic Four ain't no different. Yet Saturday brought a reality check, earning dipped to 33.2 million, a 42% drop from Friday's non-preview adjusted haul. This decline is notably steeper than recent superhero comparables, such as Superman's 33% drop, Deadpool and Wolverine's 36% drop, Captain America Brave New World's 32% drop, and Thunderbolt's 22% drop. It literally it got almost twice as high of a drop as Thunderbolts, another massive domestic box office failure for Disney Marvel once again. Why, based on these numbers, would we expect anything different for Fantastic Four? You wouldn't. History doesn't just repeat itself, it also rhymes. Deadpool and Wolverine was an anomaly because Marvel fans still trust Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. You know who they don't trust? Kevin Feige and Pedro Pascal. Yeah, that soy boy creeper out there. Sunday-based estimates came in at 27.8 million, a projected 16% ease from Saturday, pushing the domestic total to around 118 million, below the high end of forecasts and short of pre-release hype that pegged it to 125 million to 135 million. Yeah, drastically under that. You're talking 15 to 17 million. 17 million. 7 to 17 million under the predictions. Why do we listen to these people when it comes to Marvel movies anymore? We've been saying this for months now, that there's a very good possibility Fantastic Four will come in under expectations. Why? Because I'm some kind of genius? Because I'm some kind of prophet from the Lord? No. Because we've been paying attention to this and we're honest about what the past, what the history has been. And guess what? History doesn't just repeat itself, it also rhymes. And Fantastic Four is following a worse projection than other domestic and international failures at the box office from Marvel just this year alone, not to mention what's happened over the past few years. So yeah, it's not working out. As one analyst noted on X, the MCU has been seeing an increasing front-loading post-lockdowns, with first steps representing a new peak in this trend, indicating brand fatigue among general viewers. Marvel burnout is real, and nobody wants the MCU, because just like the IGN reporter told Vanessa Kirby, oh, you just saved the guys so many times. Oh, there's such a feminine energy to the movie, says Vanessa Kirby. Yeah, I wonder why that marketing didn't get people in the seats for opening weekend. Rural and suburban areas, you know, the people that have more common sense than them crazy folks that live in those giant city skyscraper semi-prisons of insanity out there. Yeah, the normal common sense folks, the people that actually make up the majority of the audiences for these kind of things, comprise only 17% of the audience, versus 20. Oh, wait, there we go. Rural areas, key for family-driven blockbusters, underperformed by 13%. Boy, this is almost starting to sound something like some kind of election that we had not too long ago, except in the opposite direction, where common sense took the higher numbers in those areas, and the other areas took a low, and the other side took lower. I don't know. I don't remember. You guys remind me in the comments section down below. While families comprised only 17% of the audience versus the 21% norm for PG-13 superhero films. And kids under 13, just 8%. Well, honestly, don't be taking your 13-year-olds to these movies anyway, but if you really feel your child's mature enough, well, you know what? You're the parent, you decide. But needless to say, these numbers show you right here that Marvel has lost a significant and a large portion of their general audience out there. The people who used to make these movies, billion-dollar box offices, have $300 million opening weekends domestically. Yeah, you've burned them. They're all gone. They want no part of your garbage anymore. And guess what? Kevin Feige, Bob Iger, you did this to yourself. You danced with the diversity, inclusion, and equity devil, and now you've gotten burned by it. How'd that work out for you? Was that modern audience worth it, Kevin? Was it? International struggles amplify concerns. That's right. It's doing worse internationally. Well, overall than Superman, even with a stronger international in the box office. And that's with a historically weak Superman International. Globally, the film is tracking around $220 million to $230 million for its opening weekend. We now know, as of today, that is, not so much. $218 million underneath Superman's opening weekend, like we talked about, of $220 million earlier over in the Cosmic Book News article. Globally, the film is tracking towards $220 to $230 million for its opening, and now we know it's $218 million, even under those tracking estimates, with $49.2 million international through Friday. While Latin America and Europe showed some strength, Mexico led with $4.1 million, followed by the UK with $2.8 and France with $2.7. Key markets lagged. China, that's where things get really interesting. Remember how Disney used to always be chasing them Chinese box office numbers, even though they got almost none of the profit from it? China, a traditional MCU powerhouse, disappointed with a mere $1.7 million on Saturday, a 4.6% drop against a typical boost like Superman's plus 12.8%. Superman did better on Saturday than it did on Friday in China, whereas Fantastic Four did worse. Projections for a $4.5 million to $5 million opening there, which, just like all of the rest of the predictions, will probably end up coming in under those estimates, because we won't get the official international box office numbers until probably Tuesday or Wednesday, because that's how much of a lag there is. Yeah, why would this come in line with audience, in line with estimates at this point? Word of mouth in China is mixed, with a Douban score of 6.2 out of 10, and sub-labeling it's the lowest Saturday ever for the MCU in the market, forecasting a 95% plus second weekend plunge. 95% plus drop. That is insane. Japan and Korea also faced local competition, muting results. Overall, international projections sit at $100 million to $105 million. As of right now, according to the numbers, $100 million. $100 million is what we're looking at right now. Compared to earlier 2025 MCU entries, which ultimately flopped, like Captain America Brave New World, which had a $181 million global start, and Thunderbolts, $162 million, First Steps holds steady, but doesn't signal the breakout Marvel needed heading into the next Avengers film, despite what the Variety headline and the rest of the legacy media will try to sell you. It's just a big bill of goods. Of course, we already talked about that with the audience reaction, A- cinema score, 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, which of course, if you actually go over to the all audience score, it's an 89%. And if you go over to the top critic score, you know, the people that actually do this full time for a paycheck from somebody besides their key investors out there, gives it an 81%. Not exactly bad, but not exactly grand either out there when it comes to the critics for a Marvel movie out there. The budget is obviously the big problem. Budget was reported to $200 million to $250 million plus marketing, which if I remember correctly, we go over here to Cosmic Book News. I think we've heard some reports out there for much higher box offices out there, a lot more of that kind of stuff out there with a much bigger budget, probably somewhere along the lines of a $300 million box office, especially with all of that kind of stuff out there as well. But let's just base this on reported numbers. With a reported budget of $200 million to $250 million plus marketing, First Steps needs to exceed $600 million to $650 million worldwide to break even theatrically. And as of right now, with an opening weekend right now of only $218 million, unless this thing has great legs and stays in the box office for like a month and a half, there's a very good possibility it could never hit that. Fantastic Four may very well lose Disney Marvel money. Current trajectories suggest a domestic finish around $300 million if legs weaken like recent MCU films. Captain America Brave New World ended at $200 million and Thunderbolts ended at $189. Obviously, both had much weaker opening weekends as well. Globally, projections range from $650 million to $750 million, but front loading could cap it lower. And why wouldn't it? As we've already shown, all of those weekend projections, all of those projections have come in way under. There's no reason to see that. And current holdovers like Superman did $24.8 million in the weekend 3, which is not bad. It's not great. It's not Batman level, but it's still not bad. And Jurassic World Rebirth also is getting $13 million. While the Fantastic Four First Steps secured a respectable opening and outperformed prior franchises' attempts, the 42% Saturday slide and international softness points to declining interest beyond core fans. For Marvel, this signals a need for stronger casual engagement to sustain the MCU's once unassailable dominance. As the summer winds down, all eyes are on the film's second weekend to gauge if it can stretch its legs or if this is another stumbling block in the multiverse saga. And honestly, at this point, based on these numbers alone, it's going to end up flopping. Unless this thing has some incredible second weekend hold, which historically, at least over the last few years, is not something that Marvel has. We have seen generally, typically, over the last few years, Marvel's weekend to weekend drop from opening weekend to second weekend is anywhere from 60 to sometimes as high as an 80% drop in cases of things like the Marvels. But even a 60 to 70% weekend drop will put it far behind the Superman weekend to weekend drop and will basically guarantee that this movie will never reach even anywhere near the 600 to 700 million internationally. It needs to break even, arguably. Hell, it might not even make $500 million globally based on these early projections, based on what we're seeing right now on the early performances. Projections be damned, because they've been wrong so far. So why would we think it's going to be any different? But at the end of the day, this is what Kevin Feige has done. Marvel, Bob Iger, Disney as a whole, and honestly, pretty much the rest of Hollywood has chased this modern audience with this wham power, diversity, inclusion, LGBTQ alphabet soup, political correctness, agenda-driven spirit of the age nonsense. They have decided to bow down to every screaming, crazy mob on the internet for the last few years. And honestly, it's been more like a decade because of how long these things take to get into production. How has that worked out for them, right? We've got the Marvels, the largest domestic disastrous dumpster fire at the box office that Marvel has ever seen, right? We've got the underperformances and the continued failed ratings of shows like Agatha All Along, Echo, hell, even Daredevil Born Again, a show that arguably was at least trying to do everything right after firing all of the original people and bringing back the majority of the original cast out there, which we will see even more of in the second season. Even that could not bring the numbers in. It still failed to chart on the Nielsen ratings. And this just shows you one thing and one thing only. It proves Marvel burnout is real. Kevin Feige, Bob Iger, and everybody else at the Disney company over there have chased this modern audience and have turned off the majority of their fan base that not only built these franchises and built this studio into the powerhouse that it was at the box office, they decided to ignore them. Why? Because they thought you were all stupid and you would just show up no matter what they put it out to. They didn't think you could think. They didn't actually think you were logical and smart. Well, anybody that's met a nerd and seen how much information they can memorize about their favorite IP should have known better. But these people didn't. They're a bunch of elites. They think they're royalty to the American population out there. They think they can do no wrong. And guess what? Just like so many other idiots in the past out there, just so many other people so filled with pride and ego and narcissism, so many others out there historically have fallen. And now that's the exact same thing that has happened to Marvel. Pride before the fall, after all, boys and girls, one of the oldest sins in existence. And now it has led to the exact same thing. Fantastic Four First Steps will lose money at the box office. And boys and girls, Kevin Feige has nobody to blame but himself. The MCU has continued strong once again in Fantastic Four First Steps, and its box office has turned out the exact same way. Thank the Lord in heaven for blessing miracles, because what did I ask for? Superman to beat the Fantastic Four, and that's exactly what we have seen happen. After all, go woke, go broke. And Fantastic Four might not be fully woke, but it's definitely more MCU propaganda. And guess what, Kevin Feige? You got exactly what you deserved. Enjoy another box office flop. I can't wait to see Avengers Doomsday.